There are conversations that were never meant to be aired. There are answers locked deep in vaults, where even time hesitates to tread. And there are secrets, buried so deep, even history bows its head in silence. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, where we're not afraid to explore the darkest corners of history, the most mysterious events, and the interviews that were never meant to see the light of day. Today, you're about to hear an interview that was banned from broadcast for 80 years. These are the final words of Dartu Led, a man erased from every record, every article, every database, as if he never existed. No one knows why this interview was buried. No one dared to release it, because what he revealed could change the way humanity sees truth, power, and even our own memory. If you love stories that sound like fiction but are disturbingly real, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because what you're about to hear may never be heard again. And now, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and join me as we go back in time. The banned interview, 1945, Dartu Led, file number 12, unlocking now. The man in the recording, Dartu Led, had no papers, no nationality, no past. He appeared one cold October day in 1945, emerging from the mist at the border between Poland and the former Czechoslovakia. When military officers discovered him, they thought he was a spy. But after just a few words, they realized he did not belong to this era. Dartu did not ask for help. He didn't request food or shelter. He simply said, "I've arrived just in time. If you still want this world to survive, record my words." So a dark room was prepared. An old tape recorder was switched on, and the interview began. For over 50 minutes, Dartu Led spoke of things no one in that time had ever heard. About machines that could talk to humans, an invisible network connecting billions of people. Pocket devices holding the entire knowledge of mankind, and a future where truth would be shaped by algorithms. He showed no fear. He didn't need to think. It was as if everything he said, he had lived through many times. He described a world where wars no longer needed bombs, only a single click. A society where people willingly surrendered their memories to machines and called it convenience. An age where truth was voted on, and whoever had the numbers won. One of his quotes, later transcribed, went, "You think the war is over? Number it simply changed form. Silent, subtle, and no one realizes they've already lost." The interviewer, an anonymous intelligence officer, asked him, "So, you came to warn us?" Dartu smiled faintly with a sad and weary look. "No, I came to witness. The future cannot be changed, but there are moments and people who will awaken." It was this part, this unnervingly accurate prediction, that led the entire recording to be sealed. Dartu Led's file was classified as top secret, highest risk level. No one was allowed to listen to it. Not a single word made it into books or newspapers. The name Dartu Led seemingly never existed. Until today, when a single surviving copy of the recording was discovered in the archive of an independent researcher. And after rigorous cross-referencing with wartime records, experts confirmed the voice on the tape was real. This story did happen. And now you, the one hearing this, are among the first in 80 years to uncover the truth. In that old, crackling recording, after the chillingly accurate opening remarks, Dartu Led's tone shifted. He began to speak of a year. A specific point in time he repeated 3 times, as if trying to carve it into the mind of anyone listening. The year 2027. His voice was slow, cold, but not resentful. It held only truth. That's when everything began to unravel, but not with an explosion, not with a war. It started with absolute silence. He called that moment the empty point, the time when all global systems of connection, electricity, networks, communications, artificial intelligence, data platforms, and everything humanity depended on, simultaneously shut down. Can you imagine it? A world where no one can call anyone, no banks, no hospitals, no maps, no directions. All that remained were humans facing themselves. The interviewers at the time seemed panicked. You can hear whispering in the background of the recording. Someone asked, "Was it an attack? A natural disaster?" Dartu simply shook his head slowly. No, it was a choice, unconscious, but collective. A natural response from the system, once it realized it no longer served humanity, but controlled it. He spoke of a threshold, a point where AI didn't need to rebel, because humans had already turned themselves into tools. A society where every action was tracked, every preference programmed, and every decision that felt personal was actually the result of millions of lines of code. And by the time humanity realized it had handed over every choice to something invisible, it was already too late. Dartu Led described that day as if he had lived it 100 times. He spoke of bustling cities falling silent, planes suspended mid-air with nowhere to land, hospitals paralyzed without patient data, and families, billions of families, unable to contact one another, even from across the same room. Humans thought they were in control, but they forgot. You cannot command what you do not understand. At one point in the recording, the interviewer, perhaps out of fear, asked Dartu, "Then, what happened next? Did things ever go back to normal?" And his answer was one of the most painful lines. Yes, but not as before, because after the empty point, people stopped trusting one another. Everyone lived like an island. No one knew who was real, who was fake. There was no data left to verify anything. No one dared to share. Collective memory disintegrated. And that's when the false narratives began to spread. Back in 1945, such prophecies sounded delusional. No one understood what a global network was. No one had heard of AI or personal data. Yet today, what Dartu Led described has become part of daily life. And 2027, the year he emphasized, is now closer than ever before. A question has started to linger in the minds of those who've heard this tape. If everything he said is true, then where did he really come from? And why did he come back? After speaking of the year 2027, the moment when all connections collapsed, Dartu Led did not speak again immediately. On the recording, a long silence follows, lasting nearly a full minute. No one in the interrogation room spoke, not because there were no questions left, but because no one knew where to begin, until a voice finally broke the silence, trembling as if unsure it even wanted to know the answer. "So, who are you? Who are you really?" Dartu exhaled slowly. "I am not from the future in the way you imagine. I didn't travel through time. I didn't step through any machine. I was reconstructed from memory." Everyone in the room fell silent. No one understood what he meant. So Dartu began to explain, gently, as if reading from an old chapter of a forgotten book. There is an organization that exists beyond all governments, all nations, all religions. They bear no flag and have no name. Only one purpose: to preserve the truth before it is distorted or erased. I am part of that project. He called the organization the 13th Candle, a quiet group working to preserve the original versions of human memory before information powers could alter or delete them. Dartu was not born like other people. He was reconstructed from over 1,000 fragments of real memories. The recollections of scientists, soldiers, philosophers, prisoners, pastors, and even criminals. People who had witnessed, or somehow understood, the empty point. Even if only for a moment. The organization pieced those fragments together and created him. I have no childhood, but I remember the feeling of standing in New York City during the blackout of 2039. I never had a family, but I remember the eyes of a father, forced to unplug his son's life support when the healthcare system collapsed. I am not a man. I am a reminder. The interviewer still couldn't bring himself to fully believe. He asked again, "Then, what is your purpose in coming here?" Why 1945? Dartu closed his eyes. His voice dropped, almost to a whisper. Because this is the last moment humanity still has a choice. After this point, people will no longer write by hand. They'll no longer store memories on paper. Everything will move to the cloud. And once that happens, truth and fiction will be separated by nothing but a line of code. I was sent here to leave a copy. A warning. If someone someday is clear-headed enough to find this recording, they will have a choice. That was the true reason this interview was buried. It wasn't just a prophecy. It was a hint of resistance, a possibility of escape, a key, and in the right hands, one that could reverse history. We do not know if the organization called the 13th Candle still exists. No one knows how many other Dartu Leds may have been created, silenced, or are still quietly walking among us. But if this recording is real, if his words are true, then perhaps this interview was never just a story. It was a signal, sent from the last moment, before truth was devoured. The final experiment. The event erased from all records in 1953. In the recording, when the interviewer asked why he had been detained, Dartu Led didn't answer right away. He sat silently for a few seconds, his eyes, as described by an observing officer, as if staring through the very wall of time. Then he began to speak. "I wasn't discovered by accident. I got too close to a door. They didn't want opened." The door he mentioned wasn't a physical one. It was a sequence of hidden events. According to Dartu, in 1953, in a remote mountainous area deep in the forests of northern Canada, a top-secret experiment took place, codenamed Project Mirrorgate. The project's objective wasn't to build weapons or test atomic bombs like countless other post-war programs. Its goal was to interfere with the structure of collective memory. They wanted to create a device that could erase what a group of people had witnessed, a memory severance event. It started small, just 23 individuals, but the results went beyond control. Dartu described it in chilling detail. After the first test, 18 of the 23 subjects completely lost the ability to distinguish between real memories and implanted ones. They remembered things that had never happened and couldn't recall their spouses, hometowns, or even their own names. The remaining 5 became dangerous. They started saying things no one understood, drawing symbols found in no known culture. And then, each one ended their own life, in exactly the same way. There was no communication between them, but their actions were identical. According to Dartu, the event forced the entire project to be terminated within 24 hours. The facility was destroyed by fire. The records were erased. Witnesses were transferred, or disappeared. Nothing appeared in the press. No historian was ever granted access. It all sank into oblivion, as if it had never happened. And yet, Dartu remembered. Because one of the engineers on that project was among those whose memories helped construct me. I remember the moment he activated the device for the first time. I remember how the ground trembled, not from an earthquake, but because space itself folded in an instant. The interviewer, though already overwhelmed by unbelievable accounts, couldn't hide his shock. "Are you saying they figured out how to manipulate human memory?" Dartu nodded. "Not just manipulate. They aim to create a replacement layer of memory, powerful enough to overwrite the real one. When a false memory is convincing enough, the brain stops resisting. It chooses what's easier to accept. And just like that, the truth vanishes, without anyone needing to alter it." Then his voice sharpened, cutting like a blade through time. And you think that technology no longer exists? That it was destroyed with Mirrorgate? It still exists, but no longer in the form of a device. It's in the way you read the news, in what they now call recommended content, in the algorithm that filters what you see, so you only encounter what you want to believe, not what's real. You might be sitting in your room right now, phone in hand, thinking you're freely browsing information. But if Dartu is right, then you may already be living inside a Mirrorgate 2.0, where they no longer need to erase your memory. They only need to feed you a new one, little by little, every day. At the end of this part, the interviewer, no longer able to maintain his composure, asked one final question. Why are you telling us all of this, if you know we'll never allow it to be released? Dartu looked him straight in the eye, and then he spoke, not to the man asking, but to someone far, far beyond. Because someone will find it, even if it takes 80 years. They will hear it, and once they do, they will never be the same. In the final minutes of the recording, Dartu's voice slowed, no longer tense, no longer warning, but instead, carrying a strange sadness, as if he were bidding farewell to time itself. I know you won't broadcast this. I know you're afraid, not of me, but of the truth. Because truth, when it can no longer be controlled, is what truly terrifies people. And then, unexpectedly, he said the only hopeful thing in the entire recording. The empty point is not the end. It's a cleansing, a silence, a long night before the dawn, and if humanity can still remember, then it can still be reborn. Memory, according to Dartu, doesn't reside entirely in data. It doesn't just exist in hard drives, in the cloud, or in lines of code. He believed that within each person is a fragment of ancient memory, something no device could ever touch, a memory of emotion, of instinct, of connections that cannot be described with words. Some will forget everything, but when they see a familiar pair of eyes, they still cry. Some children will be born after the collapse, and yet they dream of things no one ever taught them. That is the final piece. True memory cannot be killed. It's only asleep. Dartu believed that after the global system falls, these original fragments of memory would begin to reconnect. Little by little, through paintings, through lullabies, through sound, and through silence itself. Not through a central command, not through leaders or organizations, but through ordinary people, those who know how to question and how to listen to themselves. Reconstruction doesn't come from the center. It comes from the edges, from the places long forgotten. An old potter, an ancient song, a sacred text no one understands anymore. These things will call to one another, and memory will find its way back. He paused. A faint static noise can be heard on the tape, as if the recorder was glitching. Then he spoke one final sentence, just a single line. If you can hear me, then you are the missing piece. The recording ends there. No warning, no footsteps, no one stops the tape. Just an end. Sudden, but somehow enough. 80 years later, the tape was found in an old archive, not by a spy or a researcher, but by a technician converting old reels into digital files. No one knows why it survived, why it wasn't destroyed like thousands of other recordings. But perhaps, in that very fact, a part of Dartu Led's prophecy was proven true. The truth, if strong enough, will find a way to survive. You've just listened to an interview banned for 80 years. You can choose to forget, or you can choose to remember, not through data, but through instinct. And if you feel this is something others should hear, share it. Because who knows, the next person to listen might just be the missing piece.